Some horror films disturb us because of what appears on screen. Others unsettle us because of how they came to exist at all. Across the decades, there have been scripts that didn't follow the usual path from outline to final draft, scripts that surfaced suddenly, poured out of writers who couldn't explain how they were written or seemed to arrive with a will of their own. These weren't stories refined through slow, careful crafting. They arrived abruptly, relentlessly, as if dictated by something intent on being told. There are accounts of screenwriters waking from dreams they couldn't escape, compelled to put the visions on paper before they faded. Drafts that emerged overnight, typed in voices their creators didn't recognize, pages that vanished, reappeared, or rewrote themselves. And when these stories made their way into film, they carried the same disquieting energy, fractured logic, surreal imagery, and an undercurrent of dread that feels strangely intentional. Tonight, we're stepping into that murky territory. 15 horror films whose scripts were rumored to come from places beyond inspiration. Stories that feel overheard rather than invented. Stories that may have chosen their writers, not the other way around. If you've ever sensed that some films feel too strange to be fully human in origin, this is the list that will confirm that suspicion. Let's open the door and see what was waiting on the other side. Fact has shown, the Norliss tapes, 1973. He entered the room with a typewriter and a stack of blank pages. 7 days later, he walked out exhausted, yet unable to recall the details of what he had just written. William F. Nolan, known for precision and control, claimed the script for the Norliss tapes pulled itself through him. He experienced the writing process as a blur, paragraphs forming faster than he could consciously think them. When the draft was done, he felt hollow, as if something had passed through him rather than come from him. And then the strangest part, the original manuscript vanished. Nolan searched his office. The production team checked storage. Assistants combed through files. Nothing. Only secondary copies remained, accompanied by real recordings of Nolan brainstorming aloud. A few of those tapes abruptly cut off mid-thought, ending on breaths that sounded almost startled. The film's structure, fragmented tapes. A narrator trying to piece together events he can't fully grasp, mirrors the story of its creation. It feels like a transmission interrupted, a message left unfinished. Some scripts are written to reveal something. Others feel like warnings left behind. Fact #2. The Mephisto Waltz, 1971. Before Ben Maddow wrote the script, he kept hearing a tune soft at first, then insistent, as if someone were playing it in the next room. He didn't recognize the melody, but it stayed with him, looping through his mind until he finally sat down to write. That night, the entire screenplay came pouring out. Maddow later said he felt guided, not inspired. Entire scenes seemed to unspool before him, complete with rhythms and cadences he didn't normally use. When he tried to revise the pages in the days that followed, the text resisted. Edits vanished. Notes reverted. One producer joked that Maddow had angered an invisible composer. The film's tale of identity being overtaken of a dying pianist's essence possessing another man echoes the eerie fluidity of its creation. The screenplay moves with a strange certainty, as if it already existed and simply needed a human hand to deliver it. Maddow refused to discuss the writing process later in life. His only explanation was brief and unsettling. It felt borrowed. Some stories don't ask. They insist. Fact #3. The Shuttered Room, 1967. The deeper you look into the script of The Shuttered Room, the harder it becomes to determine who truly wrote it. Official credits list several writers. Production notes mention others. But crew members insisted that the final version contained scenes none of the credited writers remembered drafting. One recalled typing revisions only to receive a new set of pages the next morning, pages written in a style similar to his, but undeniably not his work. There were whispers of a ghostwriter, someone hired late into the process under unusual conditions. No direct meetings, no phone calls, no verification of identity. Pages were exchanged through envelopes slipped under doors. When the studio later attempted to contact this writer, the listed address belonged to a building demolished years before. The film itself reflects this mysterious patchwork. The tone shifts unexpectedly. The dialogue has an uncanny rhythm, as if delivered from a place just adjacent to reality. Scenes feel guided by an intelligence that isn't fully aligned with human storytelling logic. Some scripts are messy because too many minds touch them. This one is unsettling because it feels like only one mind ever did, and that mind never showed itself. Fact #4. The Night Digger, 1971. Patricia Neal approached The Night Digger, hoping for a quiet return to acting after her stroke. Instead, she found a script that felt disturbingly familiar, too familiar. Roald Dahl, her husband and the credited screenwriter, later confessed that the story did not come to him in a traditional sense. He described the writing process as drifting through a fog where images formed without his consent. Certain scenes emerged whole. Certain lines appeared as though overheard rather than imagined. He wrote because he felt compelled, not creative. Neil swore some pages reflected moments she had never shared with anyone. Private emotions appeared in the dialogue as if someone had been listening. And then there were the revisions segments written in handwriting, neither she nor Dahl recognized. The film carries that sense of psychic invasion. Characters seem haunted by memories that aren't theirs, reacting to fears the audience never sees. Every pause feels weighted with something unspoken, something inherited. It wasn't a script built from imagination. It felt like one extracted from someone's unguarded mind. Fact #5. The Evil, 1978. The script for The Evil didn't arrive so much as materialize. One morning, the production staff found a complete draft sitting neatly on a desk. No messenger logs, no signature, no trace of origin. The only clue was a stark instruction stamped across the cover: do not change anything. Naturally, they attempted edits and immediately regretted it. Pages vanished the moment revisions began. Typed dialogue reverted to earlier versions. A rewrite session ended abruptly when the script itself, left alone in the room, was found flipped back to its original pages. A production assistant quit after insisting the script didn't want to be touched. What made it to screen feels chaotic and strangely faded. Scenes rush forward like they're being pushed. Characters speak with an urgency that doesn't always align with the plot. The film behaves like something trying to escape its own confines. Some stories resist correction. Others enforce obedience. Fact cancelletto 6. Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 1971. For weeks, Lee Kalchheim woke with the same vision repeating in his sleep: a woman rising slowly from a lake, silent and empty-eyed. The image clung to him like a residue. Eventually, he began writing, not out of artistic desire, but out of a need to expel whatever he had seen. What emerged on the page was not a polished narrative, but a series of impressions, half-formed moments stitched together by dread. He admitted later that he never outlined the story, never shaped an arc. "I followed the feeling," he said. "It told me where to go." Let's Scare Jessica to Death carries that dreamlike fragility. Its terror is quiet, drifting beneath the surface like something submerged. The film moves with a lethargic grace, as though afraid that sudden motion might wake whatever lies beneath the water. When the script was finished, Kalchheim burned his notes. He didn't want a record of the dream. He only wanted it to stop. Fact #7. Alucarda, 1977. Juan Lopez Moctezuma always said the idea for Alucarda didn't come to him, it arrived without asking. During a period of intense illness, Moctezuma drifted in and out of fevered hallucinations. According to a friend who stayed by his bedside, the director muttered vivid descriptions of rituals, shrieks, and frantic images of young girls engulfed by religious hysteria. Thinking they were delirious ramblings, the friend jotted them down in a notebook. When Moctezuma recovered, he found that notebook waiting for him. It wasn't gibberish. It was a fully formed story, violent, erratic, and disturbingly coherent. He claimed he didn't remember saying any of it. The film that emerged from those pages feels feral. There is no buildup, only eruption. Scenes crash into each other with manic force, as if the film is trying to purge something. The performances look possessed, the cinematography feverish, the tone unrestrained. Moctezuma later said the film felt borrowed, like a story he simply caught in passing. Some narratives are crafted with intention. Others burst through when the mind is too weak to resist. Fact #8. Next of Kin, 1982. The script for Next of Kin began as an unanswered question. Who placed it on the desk? It arrived printed, bound, and untouched by human hands, or so it seemed. No one remembered submitting it. No email trail, no courier record. Just a clean manuscript with a single handwritten message scrawled across the title page: "Keep the door closed." Producers assumed it was a misplaced early draft, but as they read deeper, unease crept in. Certain scenes mirrored the personal history of the lead actress, details she had never shared with the studio. Dialogue mimicked conversations she remembered from childhood. When she asked who had access to her biography, she was met with confusion. No one did. Attempts to track the supposed writer led nowhere. The name was a ghost entry, no credits, no documents, no existence outside the page. The film moves with uncanny intimacy, like it knows more about its characters than the audience ever will. Watching it feels like stepping into a house that has been observing you long before you arrive. The warning on the first page lingers long after the credits roll. Keep the door closed. Fact #9. The sender. 1982. Thomas Baum didn't dream like other people. He dreamed in scenes. For an entire month, he woke every night at the same moment, 3:11 a.m., shaken by vivid images of a young man whose nightmares bled into reality. These visions did not fade when he opened his eyes. Instead, they solidified, demanding to be written down. Baum filled notebook after notebook with fragmented impressions, fractured hospital corridors, sudden shifts in perspective, voices that sounded like echoes from someone else's memories. When he stepped back, he realized the fragments had formed a complete story, a script that seemed to know its shape before he did. The sender carries the weight of those nocturnal transmissions. It drifts between consciousness and subconsciousness with unsettling fluidity. Characters behave as though controlled by unseen impulses. The film doesn't feel like it's being watched, it feels like it's watching back. When the film wrapped, the dream stopped abruptly. Baum later said, it felt less like they ended and more like they'd moved on to someone else. Fact 10. Messiah of Evil, 1973. For Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz, Messiah of Evil did not begin as a screenplay. It began as a place one they both dreamed of before a single word was written. They described the first image not as an idea, but as a location hovering at the edge of sleep. A cold coastal town without mirrors, without reflections, where residents stared at outsiders as if waiting for them. The strangeness deepened when they realized they had dreamed this same scene on the same night. As they wrote, the pages seemed to assemble themselves. Dialogues they remembered drafting separately ended up on the same page. Scenes appeared in styles that matched neither of them. During filming, actors received pages of script no crew member recalled distributing. The finished film moves like a whisper carried by something unseen, less a story than a presence. It drifts instead of follows structure, like a nightmare remembering itself through you. When asked who wrote the ending, both paused. Then each said, "I thought you wrote it." Fact 11. The Keep, 1983. Michael Mann entered The Keep with the intention of making a faithful adaptation. But soon he realized he was no longer writing a script, he was following one. Drafts shifted inexplicably. Scenes moved from one section to another as if rearranged overnight. Mann admitted that he lost track of which version was supposed to be final. In his dreams, he wandered a stone labyrinth that didn't exist in the novel Cold Walls. Endless corridors, and a sense of something older than the fortress itself. During production, actors felt unanchored. They performed scenes without understanding where they belonged in the story. Editors discovered footage that refused to align with the shooting notes, as if the film itself was pruning what didn't belong. The final cut is fractured, incomplete, but strangely deliberate, like a map with half its landmarks scraped away to hide a deeper design. Not every fortress is built to protect. Some are built to contain what must not leave. Fact 12. Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, 1977. George Barry didn't forget about his film. He forgot he ever made it. The idea came from a dream he couldn't shake, a bed that breathed, waited, and swallowed anything that lay upon it. He wrote the script to clear his mind, shot the film, and then nothing. It vanished from his memory as though someone had cut the thread connecting him to it. Decades later, he found his own film being discussed on a horror forum. Watching it felt like observing the work of another version of himself, one he no longer remembered being. There were voiceovers he didn't recall writing, scenes he didn't recall filming, transitions that felt like drifting deeper into somebody else's nightmare. The film is not disturbing because of its premise. It's disturbing because it feels transmitted rather than made. Some stories we think we forget, others simply wait for the right moment to return. Fact 13. Lamora, A Child's Tale of the Supernatural, 1973. No one involved in Lamora can confidently say who finished the final script. Not because they forgot, because no one remembers doing it. Richard Blackburn and Robert Fern both claimed authorship, yet entire sections of the screenplay bore neither man's voice. New pages appeared on the table each morning, placed by no one. The writing resembled both of them, and neither of them. During filming, unscheduled scenes appeared in the daily call sheets. Actors performed dialogue they swore hadn't been in the script the day before. Some said the lines felt whispered into their minds, like echoes from someone standing just out of sight. The film itself feels like a nightmare told in a child's voice, innocent, yet dripping with something feral. The world looks familiar but tilted, as if you're seeing a memory that doesn't belong to you. This was not a screenplay crafted. It was something that resurfaced. Fact 14. The Visitor, 1979. The visitor doesn't unfold like a story. It erupts. Giulio Paradisi confessed he didn't exactly write the film. The images forced their way in. A cold-eyed girl, a cosmic conflict, rooms echoing like abandoned sanctuaries. He described the visions as electrical surges, too vivid, too insistent, too complete. Crew members found handwritten scenes left in the director's room while he slept. Some pages were creased, as if carried by someone else. When asked where they came from, Paradisi simply shook his head. "I wish I knew." The final film is chaotic, luminous, fractured. It feels less like storytelling and more like a signal broadcast through a human medium than abruptly cut. Paradisi never made another film like it. Some messages are only meant to be delivered once. Fact 15. Dark August, 1976. The script for Dark August wasn't submitted. It was left behind. Martin Goldman received a weathered leather notebook with no return address. Inside were sketches, disjointed notes, and a scene-by-scene outline of a film he had never spoken about. Each page was marked with a strange symbol, an eye drawn shut. He tried rewriting parts of it. That's when everything went wrong. Actors forgot lines they knew by heart. Equipment failed only when filming altered scenes. A revised page was found ripped out the following morning, even though the notebook had been locked inside a drawer. The finished film feels like something watching its own audience. The woods, the silence, the lingering shots, nothing feels placed for narrative, only for observation. Goldman hid the notebook afterward. When asked where it is now, he gave the only answer that made sense. If it wants to be found, it will be. Bonus pick, Paper House, 1988. Before we close this descent into the unknown, there is one more film that belongs in this shadowed company. Paper House feels less like a screenplay and more like an intrusion, something whispered into Matthew Jacobs' mind just as he was waking, when the boundary between reality and dream is at its thinnest. He said the scenes didn't come to him as ideas, but as fully furnished rooms, complete with emotions he didn't recognize as his own. The story follows a young girl who discovers that the drawings she sketches begin to manifest in her fevered dreams. What starts with childish lines on paper becomes a labyrinth she cannot escape. The house she designs feels empty at first, then occupied. The boy she draws seems harmless until his silence becomes oppressive. Each addition she makes tightens the perimeter of a world she no longer controls. Jacobs claimed that some moments in the script felt placed, as if they were waiting for him, rather than created by him. When he revisited the finished film, he described a sense of déjà vu, not from life, but from dreams he couldn't remember having. Some stories are imagined. Others feel like recollections from a place you've never visited, but somehow remember. If these stories unsettled you, remember that they unsettled the people who wrote them even more. These films are not just products of imagination, they are fragments of something unseen, pushing their way into the world through the hands of writers who weren't always in control. And there are countless more waiting in the dark, half-formed and restless. If you want to keep exploring the corners of horror where the lines blur and the shadows whisper, you're welcome to stay with us. There are still many doors left unopened.